Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about the wellness and the job search program, and I wanted to get it kicked off by introducing myself. I am Julia Beyer. I'm an SOC career advisor at American University, and I work at the Career Center. So we're very excited to talk about this topic today.
All right, and I'm Kate Larrabee. I'm a staff clinician at the AU Counseling Center, and I'm also a clinical social worker, so it's nice to be here today.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining, Kate. And we are going to be also joined by Natalie. And Natalie is a health educator at the Health Promotion and Advocacy Center. So we have the benefit of hearing the perspective of 3 different offices today on this topic. So we're very excited to share with you some tips about wellness when it comes to the job search. So just to hit on the agenda for today, I will be reviewing job search tips from the Career Center. Kate will be discussing mental health coping skills with anxiety and stress, and Natalie will be discussing self-care techniques. So when it comes to the job search, what I'd like to get started with are the variables that are within your control as opposed to the things that are outside of your control. So the first thing we start with is how clear you are on your goals, because everything starts with knowing what your interests are, knowing what your skills are, and how you would like to apply those interests and skills to your career. So in the Career Center, we offer a couple self-assessments. We offer the Myers-Briggs type indicator. We offer the strong interest inventory. And if you're unclear about your career goals, these assessments can help you clarify some of those things about your personality, your skills, and your interests. So if you are clear on your career goals, then we're happy to still work with you and develop a strategy and approach for the job search. And that is the next point of the job search strategy. So I say applying the 80-20 rule to tap into the hidden job market. If you haven't heard of the hidden job market, it's the job market that where things are not advertised, because the majority of openings that are out there are never advertised. And how do you tap into those opportunities? Well, 80% of your time should be devoted to networking, to reaching out to people, to informational interviewing, to attending any career-related events or networking opportunities. And so that is the 80% of the time that you should be devoted to your approach in your job search, is making connections with specific individuals and organizations, or with specific individuals who work in opportunities that you're interested in working. So the 20% is applying to job online, which you can apply to jobs online, but the odds are much greater. The odds are stacked against you. So to make it easier to set yourself apart from others, to be visible, so people can refer you to different opportunities, it's so important to make networking an important part of your job search strategy. Other parts of your job search strategy include the skills that you bring to the table, your experience, your network, where you want to work, how you want to work, whether remote or hybrid or in person, and depending on what format the opportunity is in, whether you want to be in a specific geographic location in the country, which might limit the types of opportunities that are available to you. So what is else within your control in the job search is your application materials, making sure your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile are all fully complete and polished and proofread, and there are no grammar or spelling errors. So making sure that all your materials are up to date with all the relevant information for the different types of opportunities you're interested in is critically important. Networking, that's within your control. So you could set small goals about the networking and the types of opportunities that you want to and people you want to reach out to. So tools like LinkedIn can help you identify people who work at different organizations to reach out to. And I just wanted to take a minute to pause there and pull up the American University LinkedIn page here. If you just search American University on LinkedIn and you pull up the alumni page, here's where you could see a summary of all alumni, where they live, where they work, what they do, what they studied. And regardless of the type of opportunity you're interested in, you could search by a keyword, you could search by job title or company name and try to find alumni to reach out to, specifically like for Deloitte, for example. And you can pull up the information of recruiters who work there and alumni who work there who might be of interest to you to reach out to. So networking is a really critically important part of the search. So let me go back to this and we'll keep advancing. What factors are out of your control? The economy. We always have to sort of educate ourselves based on the type of industry you're interested in and the type of role you're interested in. What is going on in the economy? And I'm going to hit on a couple resources for that in a minute. COVID, we don't know what is going to be happening with COVID, what other variants might be coming to fruition. So there's always going to be ever evolving forms of work, such as if you are working now remote, maybe your job is going to turn into a in-person opportunity again, depending on what phase your organization or job is taking right now. Things that are also not in your control is whether your application is ignored after submission, because of course the odds are against you, the more opportunities that you're applying for online. And so you want to make sure that you stand up above the crowd and not be ignored when you're submitting your application. And so with every application you submit, I would try to identify a specific person to reach out to who would be potentially somebody who could help you with your application or get advice from about your application. And related to the economy, I just wanted to share a couple resources. One is the Occupational Outlook Handbook here. And this is a data that we can find put out by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. And you can search these different occupational groups here or any occupational title and even see highest paying jobs, fastest growing jobs, most new jobs. And so when you click in on one of these, you could see a summary of the 20 highest occupations right now. And then of course you could click in on any of these to find more information about the occupation, a summary of what level of education is required, salary, projected job growth for this one specifically, a little bit slower than average, job outlook. So it's important to pay attention to the external factors, what is going on in the economy. You have your approach or strategy, but you need to adapt your strategy based on what is going on. And then one other resource here is ONET, which is put out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And here you can, again, search any occupational title. You could do a quick search and find information about this. When there's a sunshine, it means bright outlook. It means that they're hiring. And we could find more detail about any job or occupation, a summary of skills, knowledge, skills, abilities. And as we scroll down, what level of education is required and other related occupations, as well as salaries. So here you can drill down and get information about salaries, about any occupation, projected growth in the economy. So that's another wonderful resource. And then I also wanted to highlight We Know Success. And we know success is data that the Career Center tracks about where graduates go 6 months after they graduate. And you can have a broad summary for any major. You could search, by school, by specific major, how many people at 6 months after AU are working or in grad school or both, what sector they're working in, a list of employers. So I wasn't specific about what I searched for a specific major. This is for all students. We got a long list of employers where they have found full-time jobs. And then we also have salary information. And lastly, internships, where AU students have done internships for credit. So whether you're looking for an internship or you're looking for a job, you can find data here by major, by school, where your fellow students have found opportunities. So that is within your control. Okay, so let's go back here. Managing stress in the job search. Do not conduct your job search in isolation. Reach out to others. If you're a soon-to-be grad, make sure you keep in touch with your fellow classmates about how they're doing with their job searches. I think there's a lot of people to reach out to for advice, alumni, employers, family members, but there's nothing like keeping in touch and being in sync with people who are in your same boat and are struggling with, what we're emerging from now is this COVID economy, and comparing notes and understanding what kinds of challenges that are unique to you and your generation and what you're facing right now in your job search. Thinking of the job search as a long-term project comprised of many pieces. So there are many components to assess with the job search, as I referenced to before, which is what location, what industry, what specific organization you're interested in their job. And it's good to sort of, have an idea of what you're interested in, what is important to you, what are the important factors in the job for you to be interested in, and then what are some variables you could be flexible on, because there is no perfect job out there. So if we can identify those core components in the job that are important to us, for us to be interested and excited about the opportunity, but thinking about also what can we be flexible on if we don't get what our plan A was initially, what could be a plan B? So it's always good to be flexible, test out your strategy, see if it works, see what kind of response you get. If the strategy that you're moving forward with right now is not working, take a step back, reassess, reevaluate again what those variables are that you're interested in and which ones you might want to adjust or tweak that you're more flexible on. Taking planned breaks to avoid burnout, taking mental health days in between the search. The search is a long-term project. So in addition to staying in touch with the folks that are sort of in your same boat, experiencing the same challenges, taking breaks from that and recharging your batteries and finding ways to keep your energy up and your positive outlook, because that's one thing employers can pick up on is when somebody is drained or feeling frustrated or just negative. You want to come across as upbeat and as happy and excited for the opportunity for employers to interview you and to connect with you. So make sure that you take breaks and make sure that you maintain your positive energy so that you could recharge and regroup and come back to it with renewed energy and focus. Establish realistic goals and do something every day to work towards those goals. So if you make a goal this week, I want to talk with 3 people, 3 people, and then by the end of the week, you do it, you start to achieve those goals and you start to make progress on the greater task of finding that job by breaking it down into smaller goals. So although you can't control how long it's going to take, and where the opportunity is going to come from and being in the right place at the right time, you can control setting those small goals along the way. It is within your control to, how many jobs you apply for, how many people you reach out to, how carefully you craft your materials, how carefully you proofread your online materials. And I wanted to remind you of a couple of opportunities that are coming up that are great opportunities to network for you. We have 2 fairs, an in-person as well as a virtual fair coming up a week apart. And we have a number of prep events happening ahead of those fairs that can help you with crafting your elevator pitch, your 30-second pitch to employers to explain a little bit about yourself, your resume, as well as how to prepare for the virtual and job and internship fair. And then we also have resume stations where you can do a quick resume critique. So these are wonderful opportunities to practice networking in person as well as virtually. You're going to need both skills going forward because the virtual world, remote interviewing, remote networking is not going away, regardless of what happens in our world. And then I just wanted to remind everybody that you can make 30 to 60-minute appointments with the Career Center. You can make them through Handshake, or you can call us or email us. We also have lots of virtual tools accessible 24/7 and on our website here. And so this is the main page of our website at american.edu/career center. And we have lots of tools under Prepare for the Search, including resume and cover letter samples, cover letter template here, and writing samples and interviewing advice. So here we have many, many other resources that you can check out. Okay. And Kate, is this the first slide for you?
It is, yeah.
Okay, great.
All right. Thanks, Julia. And when I need to go to the next slide, I'll just say next slide. Appreciate you moving them along. So hi, everyone. My name is Kate Larrabee. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker at the AU Counseling Center and staff clinician. And so as Julia was talking about, wellness and managing stress within the job search, I thought I would drill down a little bit into it. This is, these slides have been sort of modified from our anxiety toolkit presentation, but managing stress can, sort of fall, the tools to manage them can be pretty similar. So, all right, next slide. All right. So this is just sort of a brief overview of what is anxiety, job search anxiety, any kind of anxiety, anxiety about the future. So anxiety is a mental and physical reaction to something that is perceived as threatening. In small amounts, anxiety can be really helpful because it helps us protect us from danger by focusing on our attention. Maybe some of you, as you've gone through school, like having anxiety about a test might give you some motivation to study more. Anxiety and stress in smaller amounts can be helpful and adaptive to us. However, when anxiety becomes too severe, too frequent, it can be really debilitating and really kind of hold us back. Anxiety comes in all sorts of different forms, in terms of sort of generalized anxiety about everything, to specific phobias, and the like. So just sort of wanted to give a normalize anxiety and stress it at the outset. Next slide, please. Ooh. Okay. So some symptoms of anxiety, as it relates to the job search or not, or just being in school, difficulty controlling worry, some physical symptoms like sweating, trembling, feeling weak or tired, trouble concentrating. I know that's an often very common one. feeling nervous, restless, or tense, and increased heart rate, trouble sleeping. So these are all, and there's some overlap with other mental health symptoms like depression, but these are some kind of basic anxiety symptoms that are pretty common to feel when one's feeling that sense of anxiety. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is the slide that I think is I would assume is sort of most relevant to job search, the job searching. Julia talked about sort of breaking things down into manageable pieces, and I think that's really important when you are kind of looking at a really big undertaking like finding a new job and keeping your head level while doing so. So the basic kind of cycle of anxiety is like there's something we're anxious about, whether it be finding a job, a test, some sort of like difficult conversation we have to have, any of the variety of things you can think about in your life that have at some point given you a sense of anxiety. And so because anxiety is such a unpleasant sensation, emotion, etc., we'll do things to kind of like push it off so we can not have that anxiety. We can give ourselves a little bit of short-term relief. So often what will happen is like we have anxiety, we want to get rid of the anxiety in the short term, and so we avoid what's the maybe like the trigger that's making us anxious, which does in the very short term give us a short-term relief from anxiety. And so we feel like, oh yes, okay, like I can, like I've sort of not applied for that job, or I've not like contacted that person I should be networking with, and it gives us like a little bit of a short-term relief from that anxiety. But the irony is that the more we kind of avoid, the long-term anxiety actually kind of grows. So the longer that you maybe put off getting, networking or getting in touch with contacts or writing people back or doing some of those like job searching tasks that Julia talked about, the long-term anxiety growth kind of grows, and then which like cycles back to more anxiety. So kind of keeping this in mind, and this is the cycle of anxiety can be applied to like many things that are not just not just the job search, but I think it's really applicable to the feelings of having something feel kind of insurmountable, like finding a new job can be. So next slide. Okay, so this is another kind of basic, this is taken from cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's kind of like a cognitive triangle when we're thinking about anxiety, stress, our emotions, and essentially like the thoughts that we have can both, the thoughts, you see thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and essentially they all interact with each other. Our thoughts can influence our behaviors, the behaviors we engage in can then elicit feelings, elicit thoughts. So they're really all related. And I think the sort of take home is that, like, in rethinking about the way, being able to observe our thoughts, we can really in turn affect how like our future behaviors and our feelings. So we do have like some control, or equal amount of control between the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are some unhelpful thinking styles. Another way we talk about them is cognitive distortions. So basically sort of thinking errors. And I thought I would pull out a few of them just because, when we feel a tremendous amount of stress or anxiety, we can kind of fall prey to some of these thinking styles that are not all that helpful to us in achieving, feeling well and going through life and even finding a job. So catastrophizing is one, and that's one when we blow things way out of proportion. We view the situation as terrible, awful, horrible. And even though the reality is the problem might actually not be as big as we think it is. Maybe an unhelpful thinking style would be like, oh, well, I'm never going to get a job at X place. And that's not necessarily, looking at the evidence, that's maybe not necessarily a helpful way to think about something. Overgeneralization. So when we take one instance and impose it on all current and future situations, so we're sort of like always, never, everyone, you. So just a lot of overgeneralizing is something to keep an eye on as well. Jumping to conclusions, we think we know what somebody else is thinking, or we make we make predictions about what is going to happen in the future, and then base how we feel on what we think that prediction is going to be. And some of these sort of unhelpful thinking styles overlap a little bit, but black and white thinking in extremes, no grays or shades of in-betweens or shades of gray. And then emotional reasoning occurs when you base review of situations or yourself on the way you're feeling. And so I think emotional reasoning, because job searching can be so, can be pretty emotional, and people have lots of sorts of feelings, like focusing on your future and what kind of, and your career, our emotions can really get tied up in that. So I really just show this to say, be careful about maybe some ways that you could challenge your own thoughts in terms of thinking in maybe not so helpful styles. Next slide, please. Okay, so some techniques to manage anxiety and stress. And next slide, please. Okay, so some helpful ways of coping, relaxation techniques, deep breathing, grounding, meditation, mindfulness. There are a ton of relaxation techniques through meditation apps online. There's really a lot out there. If learning some of these mindfulness techniques is something you're interested in. So distraction, Julie talked about taking some breaks, listen to music, listen to podcasts, watch TV. You can't be job searching 24 hours a day. And so making sure that when you're distracting yourself, you're doing something that you do enjoy to sort of give yourself a break. Physical activity, going to the gym, going for a walk, social engagement, making sure you're not isolating too much. Processing, I think this could be really helpful. Recognizing and labeling emotions, even as you're thinking about labeling unhelpful thinking styles, what your experience has been like talking to someone, go to therapy. This is where using AU Counseling Center services comes in. Creativity, if that's your thing, organization, making a list, making plans, spiritual, and then acceptance. Acceptance of, hey, this is could be just a very anxiety or stress inducing process. Next slide, please. So some unhelpful ways of coping: procrastination, which I talked about in the earlier slide with long-term anxiety growth, drugs and other substances, which might be another way of avoidance. overeating, sleeping too much or too little, and social withdrawal. So those things, if you find yourself doing them more than you thought you would, that doing them a little bit more, just sort of pay attention to that. All right, next slide. So as I mentioned, and there's probably like way more than the 4 listed here. There are a lot of good apps now that focus on mindfulness and mental health, mood tracking, that a lot of people find really, really helpful. And so these are just a few, and there are a ton more that if, using a smartphone app to manage your mood, manage stress, meditate is your thing, definitely check out. Next slide, please. Okay, so AU Counseling Center services are available to you. So we have intake appointments. You can call AU Protocol, which is our crisis support line, and you can call that 24 hours a day. We have individual counseling at the counseling center. We provide referrals to off-campus providers. We have group counseling, and you can also use the My SSP app. And if you are interested in an initial consultation with us, you can just call the number at 202-885-3500, and we are based on the 2nd floor of MGC. So if, we as clinicians see lots of people transitioning, graduating, thinking about their next steps. And so this is definitely a time to get more support, and doing so in individual counseling is a good way to do that. So I think that is my last slide.
Thank you, Kate. Natalie.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. My apologies for background noise if there is any, but I will go ahead and get started. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Price. I am the health educator in the Health Promotion and Advocacy Center at AU, which is located in Hughes Hall 105, so like the 5 entrance to Hughes, on the bottom floor. And our office is open Monday through Thursday, and we work remotely on Friday. So that's our current schedule. If you have a question, I'm so sorry, have any questions or want to book an appointment with myself or my coworker, Michelle Danye, who is the Victim Advocacy Coordinator for OASIS, you can book an appointment with us at eBookMe, and the link is posted right there. All right, awesome. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about like scheduling time and managing time during the career search, which is incredibly time consuming. It can be a very long process, especially if you go through multiple different phases of interviews or resume updates or talking to recruiters or reaching out to people. So just making sure that you schedule time for your mental health and your well-being is so critical during this time period. And it's really easy to forget about time to unwind. So just make sure that you're doing that for yourself. Like Catherine mentioned, burnout patterns are so easy to fall into without managing your schedule. So just touching in with yourself and keeping sure that that burnout is put to the side is so critical as well. And just being kind to yourself too, even if you overbook yourself, just make sure that you try again the next day to relax and take time for yourself. It's also really important to not to give yourself artificial deadlines. Artificial deadlines can be really daunting, especially if it's something that's out of your reach or it's a goal that you may not be able to complete within a certain deadline. So making sure that you're giving yourself small measurable goals each day is really important to the job search process, and just making sure that you're giving yourself some rest as well. All right, the next slide, we're going to talk about avoiding negative self-talk. It can be really overwhelming to come across with job searches, especially if rejection is something that you face. So an interview doesn't go as well as you thought, or you haven't had as many interviews as you wanted to if you've applied to a lot of positions. So if those negative feelings start to creep up on you, there's an exercise that can help. The first is to write down 3 things that you're proud of yourself for. So it could be little things like you did for yourself that day, or your accomplishments thus far in life. Next is a really good way to get those negative feelings out is to exercise. So running, walking, doing something to move your body can really help with getting that tension and stress out. And also just reminding yourself that rejection is normal and it's not something that just happens to you. It happens to everyone. And it's really important to give yourself those reminders when something isn't going your way all the time. Another really important thing to touch on with this is imposter syndrome, which some of us may have experienced as a result of the pandemic. The pandemic has really isolated us in a lot of ways, academically, professionally, personally. So it's important to remind ourselves that even though we may not feel qualified for a certain position or even prepared for, that could just be some unconscious bias telling ourselves that we aren't valid. So just remind yourself that you're worthy and that your accomplishments have paid off so far. Awesome. The next slide, we're going to talk about celebrating small wins. So the job process is very, very tough to get through if you don't celebrate little things each day. I really like to reward myself for just small accomplishments. So sending an email or reaching out to a recruiter, all of those things will pay off in the long run. I guarantee it, to create a long-term result. So just making sure that you're patting yourself on the back and hyping yourself up, even if no one else does, that will help you propel your way through this process. Even if it's something as little as sleep, that is incredibly important, especially if you're feeling run down and just constantly bombarded by this process. So turning off your computer at the end of the day, stop checking your email. You won't be at your best if you don't have enough sleep. So make sure you're giving yourself some time down. Taking breaks throughout the day is also just as rewarding. Just like stepping away from the computer, your email, go on a walk. Give yourself at least 3 breaks throughout the day. If you're just on the computer, it's super important. Even if everything doesn't go your way during the job search, just remember everything you've accomplished so far will pay off and it's not for granted. Awesome. Even though the job search process may seem like the only thing going on in your life at that time, and that's your only goal that you're working for, do not forget to give yourself personal goals. So maybe some time off or a vacation, something to reward yourself and your schedule that may be out of the ordinary, can be really helpful to get yourself through this process. So make sure you're setting goals outside of your work life that you can work towards and find something that inspires you. It can be easy to just be in a rut after this for weeks or months of searching for jobs or applying. So make sure that you're shaking up your pattern once in a while, like reading a new book, poem, or even making an inspiration board, just something that inspires you once in a while. Awesome. And then my last slide for the day is my job search do's. So these are just tips that have come from my own personal life. In the past, when I search for jobs, I really like to prepare heavily for interviews and making a list of questions that I want to ask an interview at the end. Not only will you look prepared and look like you've done your research, but it also just gives you time to practice those questions in case you're nervous or you can't think of anything to say at the end. I also really like to jot down some scenarios that I've gone through in the past in jobs or internships and just list their outcomes. So things I didn't like about that job, things I did, my coworkers, complexities if they come up. So doing that will not only help you memorize those scenarios, but also helps you prepare responses so you don't have to come up with them on the spot. Also, updating your resume with words, recent job descriptions you're applying for is also super beneficial because it gives recruiters and hiring managers a chance to sort of compare what they have on their descriptions with what you have. So it just makes you look very qualified and like you've done your homework. Also, always sending thank you emails after your interview is super important. Just remind the person that you're talking to that you're thankful for their time, and also that you are really, really interested in that position. And usually gets you good reps if you are constant with that. And my last point is to reflect on what went well and what didn't go well after the job search process. So just reflecting on what you think you could do better next time when the next job creeps around can help you do even better on the next interview you have. And that is all I have for you today.
Julia, you're muted. You're muted.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you so much, Natalie and Kate, for sharing your insights and from your different perspectives and offices. And at the end of the day, we're just all here to support AU students. So don't be afraid to meet with any of us and ask any follow-up questions. And is there anything else that Kate or Natalie you want to add?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me on this panel.
Okay, great, great. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. It was great collaborating with you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.